Okay, so my name is Anthony Kessler, and I'm making this video to tell my story and tell the truths of my story and all the truths that are available to me to be told. Um, from a very young age, my mother has sent me to my grandmother's numerous times. I never really had a good relationship with her. We had relationship counseling and stuff. She always just didn't like me. And when I was about 12 or 13, she informed me that my biological dad, who she sent me to his house every summer, raped her. So I was a product of rape. And she informed me that I was a mistake and that she actually wanted an abortion when she was pregnant with me. But she didn't get an abortion. And she feels like that is why I'm gay and that is why I'm a problem child. And that was just that. And I cried for 2 or 3 days on and off, and I called my grandmother about it, and I called my dad, and I was just so upset. And it was just very hard to comprehend. And then it kind of like made sense. Okay, like that's why she's never loved me, that's why she never liked me, that's why all this abuse has happened, which I am not the only one that endured abuse. So did my siblings, and that is their story to be told by them. That is their truths to tell. I'm not here to expose anybody except for what my truths are. So, around the time I was like 13, 12, 13, around my 13th birthday, also a pre warning is this is very detailed. So, when I was 12 ish, 13, um, my stepdad had numerous times like showed me pictures of vagina. He had this little flip phone or whatever, and he was working for FEMA at the time. And he would always like be like, "Does that make your penis hard?" Which he said the D word or whatever. And I would be like, always like, because I knew I was gay, like, look at it funny or whatever. And I just thought that was like kind of like a normal dad thing, maybe like talk about girls, whatever. Well, there was one day when we was going to the dollar store, he had asked me about a picture and if it made me want to come, and I didn't really know what come was at that time. I'd never masturbated or been open to any sexual situations. So I was like, no. And he was like, well, I'm going to show you when we get home. And so we went in the dollar store. And then I got home. He was like, go to the back shed. And so I was in the shed. And then he came out there and he was like whistling. And then um, he had pulled down his pants. And then he told me to touch it. And I was scared. And so I did. And then he proceeded to tell me to put it in my mouth. And I did. And he made me do that until he came. And afterwards, he told me that if I told anybody, he would leave my mom, and he paid all the bills. My mom didn't work. My mom hasn't worked most of my life. Um, and and that was like, I felt like I had to hold the family together by not telling the truth. And I remember crying and scrubbing my body, like scrubbing soap into my penis and my butthole, and praying for God to kill me. And I used to cry all the time, and he would always bang on the door and tell me to shut up. And he would always do it because all my siblings played sports, so there was like always times when I was home by myself or whatever. And my mom would keep me grounded to my room all the time, and there are witnesses to that. And the witnesses can comment, or you can, I don't want to hit anybody out that doesn't want directly involved right now. I do know several people will testify on my behalf. I know my mother is speaking about defamation of character, but I looked at the Alabama state law and that you have to be lying. So if you're telling your truths, that's not defamation of character. You're speaking truths about their character. So from that point on, multiple times until I was 15, like I was getting sexually abused, and it was always just my mom would be taking them to practice. It was usually at night times. I forgot. I want to say it was like Tuesdays and Thursdays may have been practice, and then Nika had practice, and Cody had practice, and just all this stuff. And then like when I came out to her, she beat me with a Bible, and all this stuff, and which is strange because she's literally a pill addict and has been pills since, for a fact that I know of, since her back surgery. And then um, I used to run across the street to the holiness people all the time, and they would always just, they didn't want to be involved, blah, blah, this, blah, that. I had a childhood friend that lived across the street, and she can attest to me running over there and mom abusing me and stuff. And there's several people that have witnessed her putting her hands on us and stuff. And so the reason I'm making this is because there's so much he said, she said. I can go on here all day and tell you my story, but without action, without result, it's rather pointless in a way. And I've already gotten several phone calls about how me telling my story has inspired people to tell theirs, and that's mainly the goal, is inspiration and just justice. I really would just love justice. You know, they closed my case when I was younger, when I finally told, when I was about 15. They closed it due to lack of evidence because they would not do a lie detector test. The first excuse was that he was sick. The second excuse was that he had surgery, which is reasonable. Let's reschedule it. The third one was that he was too old. And if you know anything about lie detector tests, they're a measure of your heartbeat. They don't actually affect your heart or anything else. That is a myth. You can Google that. And so I struggled from then on with PTSD and generalized anxiety, and I'm now medicated on Zoloft and Seroquel. I do not take narcotics because I'm scared of medicine. Even people that tell me, oh, you should take Xanax, like if that's what they try to prescribe you, or Klonopins, but my mom's a pill addict, and that terrifies me. If she's okay with her own husband sexually abusing her kid, and when I try to tell her about it numerous times from the time I was 12 to 15, she would say that I was just wanting attention, that it was just theatrics. And so the time she would beat me, she would not call the police department directly. She would always call her police friends. The one time the police were called by, when I was with my nana, and she told me I had to live with him again, and I hadn't had to be abused in almost a year. The cops were there because I had ran away, but I was running to get help, and that was the only point anything was ever done. DHR took me into their custody, and I was in and out of foster care since then. And that's like, I've literally had to do some things I'm not proud of just to survive. And, you know, and this is the sad truth of many young gay men, and this is the sad truth of many young men, and this is the sad truth of many young women. And it is so disgusting how families will suppress what goes on behind closed doors in order to protect so-and-so or this person, or they don't want to believe that, or they don't want to believe this. But that's not your place. It's not your place to protect something that you don't know for a fact didn't happen. And so many years later, 5 years later, and 3 suicide attempts later, that's like, everybody asks if this is a hickey. No, there's a scar on my neck from me attempting suicide earlier this year. And yes, she will use that I'm mentally unstable against me. I am diagnosed with manic depression, which is bipolar with sadness, and generalized anxiety and PTSD. And that does not make somebody a pathological liar. That does not make them not credible. I did go to jail last year, which I'll talk about in another video. You know, you can try to use your opinions to make something not true, but if it's not facts, it doesn't make it not true. And there's more truths that I find out every day. That is the reason why I'm still standing, and the reason why I'm still fighting, because I'm not gonna give up. I have cried for my mother numerous times. I've cried for my father numerous times. My biological dad disowned me because I am gay, but he was by my side up until I was in my first foster home. And it just really breaks my heart that kids and babies, innocent, and even grown people, nobody should be sexually abused. And I haven't learned how to let it go. And I go to therapy. I go to therapy, and I'm gonna learn how. It's a slow process. Certain smells, certain things still haunt me. I just can't sit here and know my truths and know these other truths and just sit here and turn the cheek and be like, oh, well, it happened, and, it happened. If justice isn't served, people don't get closure. If your story isn't heard, people don't know. If people don't know, people don't see. If people don't see, they don't know. So it's very important for everybody to be open and be honest and speak up, and don't let, because it's this high member of society, or if it's this parent or this family member, and nobody's gonna believe you. The truth will set you free. The truth may hurt you. It may like, I lost everything. I lost my whole family. Everybody turned away besides my nana and my grandmother in Florida and my dad. Well, okay, so I had 3 people. My dad really wasn't fully in my life anyways. My nana and my grandmother are the only 2 people that have stuck by my side. And, you know, from struggling so long for a reason to live, I feel like my reason now is to fight. My reason, not just for myself, for everyone, for any victim. You know, I plan on being a therapist. I'm actually thinking about being a lawyer. I haven't decided. I'm gonna enroll to college next year. I have to get my GED because I emancipated my senior year to work full time, and so I really couldn't handle school and work. So my mother wants to talk about this and talk about that, Google my name and everything else. Well, there's an explanation, and I'm all about taking responsibility. So I hope through this video that everyone is able to find some inspiration, or maybe some truth. So many people from me coming forward have came forward with what they've witnessed having to do with my truths. If she tries to take me to court, which she has no grounds to stay on, I have witnesses. And I have a good lawyer, and I'm very thankful for my lawyer. So, and the people are like, oh, prayers and thoughts, you know, that helps. But also does donating. If you have any finances to donate to organizations that help with rape victims, that is so important, because there's so many people. 1 in 6 women are raped. 1 in 6 women are raped. I don't know the statistics on men, but 1 in 6 women are raped. That is so much. That is so too many people. That's sickening. And to know that I'm not the only one that has dealt with what I've dealt with, and I'm not the only one out here hurting, just inspires me so much more, because you never know who is a victim. You never know. And by maybe telling your story and your truths, you can inspire somebody else to tell their story and their truths. And maybe slowly but surely we can hold these people that are violating our minds and violating our bodies and violating us accountable. And that can only be done by continuously telling your truths and telling your story. And it's just, I just really, words cannot express like the sickness in my stomach, the hurt in my heart from the disgusting actions of others. Like, my youth was stolen from me, my childhood was stolen from me, my purity was stolen from me, my mentality was stolen from me, and I'm having to build it up. Like, I'm in physical therapy after a major surgery. Like, I'm having to slowly build myself up and up and up and together when I never should have been broken. You should never have been broken. And my birth mom can lie and defend a rapist for the rest of her life, and that makes her just as guilty. Just as guilty. If you lie for a rapist, if you hide something that's happened, you are just as guilty as those people.